Hi, I'm Pamela, and welcome to Greenstick Cottage, where I read and listen to books and pursue other enjoyable activities whenever the cats allow me to. And right now, they've kind of run themselves ragged and they're all at rest. So this is a good opportunity for me to talk about the books that I have finished lately. And I will start with Chasing the Dime by Michael Connelly, which is, I was going to look up the numbers, but I forgot. Anyway, I've been reading and or listening to Michael Connelly's books in publication order. And Chasing the Dime, the main character is Henry Pierce. And so it is not a Harry Bosch novel, but I enjoyed it. And what I really am finding that I'm liking about Michael Connelly there's a couple of things, and one of them is to date I have not yet guessed the whodunits, and I love that he stumps me. And when he finally reveals who did the murder or whatever, I'm always surprised. And I love that. To me, that is a great mystery writer, because it seems like most of the time I'm pretty sure of who it might be, or I've at least considered that person. But sometimes I just have no idea until we get towards the end and he reveals it. So I really like that about him and his writing. And I also like, I don't know if it was this way in the earlier books as much, but it seems like in these more recent to me, books, the titles are kind of a little, I like when he reveals the meanings of the titles and what the significance of the title of the book is to the story in the book. And so that was the case in Chasing the Dime, that there's a certain reason for that title in Henry Pierce, the main character's pursuit of his scientific pursuits, I guess, let's put it that way. And so I enjoyed it. I did miss Bosch, of course, but as a little detour, it was nice. And it had some hard parts where you learn more about Pierce and why he is so interested in the woman whose phone number he inherited. He and his girlfriend broke up. He moved into a new place. He got a new phone number, and he starts getting calls from men looking for this woman who is an escort. And so he gets curious and is trying to find out. He's trying to find her to get her to take the phone number off of the website that the men are getting this phone number from. And so the book is really about that pursuit of trying to find her. And so it was really good. I really liked it. And so I moved on to the next Michael Connelly book, but I'll talk about that in a little while. The next book I finished was The Menopause Reset by Dr. Mindy Pelz. I had read her book called Fasting Like a Girl, where she talks about how men and women need to fast differently, that fasting affects women's bodies differently than men's bodies, and how the hormones how you have to keep all that in mind when you're coming up with a system of fasting or a fasting protocol. And so the menopause reset I don't know if she wrote this one before or after Fasting Like a Girl, but it covers far more than menopause, which I thought was really interesting, and I was happy to find that. And she talks about all kinds of things, like how to get better sleep. A lot of the symptomatology of menopause, the harder things that women go through, men can go through those things too, like sleep disturbance, for example. And she goes into nutritional ways and other eliminating toxins from your environment and things like that to help you with other things, and to work with your circadian rhythms and your melatonin production and things like that. That's just on sleep. But there are other things like GI issues, gastrointestinal issues, and some issues that men and women, can both suffer from symptoms. Women just seem to get them all congregating during the time of menopause. And so it's very informative, and I added this book to my purchase list, a book I want to purchase, because she has so many good instructional things that I'm not going to be able to remember. I didn't take enough notes on, and so I had to finish the book because I borrowed it on Libby, and so I didn't have a long enough time frame to take all the notes I wanted, and I thought, well, I'm just going to add that to my purchase list, so I'll have my own copy, and I can look at that if any of these symptoms, if I encounter any of these symptoms. It's like, what did Dr. Mindy say about that? I'll look it up and find out. And I really like her. I have been following her Fast Like a Girl protocol since, I started with intermittent fasting in February, and then I learned about her book, Fast Like a Girl, and then I read that, and I started doing cyclical fasting, and I've been doing very well with that, and I do notice a difference. I have done the intermittent fasting from 13 hours to 17-hour fasts, and I've done 24-hour fasts, 48-hour fasts, 36-hour fasts, and one 72-hour fast. And once you get used to it, it's not difficult, and it actually feels good to give your body a rest from digestion and all that. So, but anyway, I follow her advanced reset, and in fact, and she talks about the different types of fasts, and I think she does that in both books, in the menopause reset. Well, I know she does it in Fasting Like a Girl. I think she also goes into that in the menopause reset. But the different lengths of fasts have different results. When you're searching for certain results, like resetting your microbiome in your gut or something like that, and the 72-hour fast is an immune reset, immune system reset. And so since I've been doing this, I have been very healthy. So anyway, it's working great for me. All right, and then I finished another library book, The Hive Queen, which is, I believe it's number 12 of the Wings of Fire series by Twee Sutherland. And these books are housed in my library in the children's section. I think they are geared towards middle school age children, which is just about right for me. It's just perfect for me. I love how these books, this series, and I've read them all, including, so I've read all 12, plus the 2 legends, which are kind of, additional books. One of those books, I can't remember the name of it offhand, but it is more human-centric. But the rest of the series is very much dragon-centric, and so these And I call them anthropomorphized dragons because they act very human in many ways. And I love the humor in the books, the adventure. There's even some romance here and there, and excitement, even some horror sometimes. And it's just it can be very exciting, and I just love the way for me, I get caught up in it, and I kind of sometimes forget that they're dragons. And so the author sometimes throws in little things like during a dialogue between two characters, or even somebody, in their own head will be thinking and saying, yeah, I should do this, but on the other talon. And that always makes me laugh. She'll throw in little things like that, little reminders that these are dragons, and the food they eat and things like that is different from us. And so even though they can act very human at times with very human thought processes, human foibles, at heart, they're still dragons, and they like to eat certain things, and they don't always think exactly how we do. But of course, all humans don't think alike either. So there's a lot of that. And one of the things I really loved about the Hive Queen is the earlier books take place on a certain continent with various tribes of dragons, which are different species of dragon, or subspecies, I guess. And they, in the front of every book, she has I'm going to show the next book that is on my TBR, but she will show, she'll have a guide to the dragons like this. She'll have so you get to know the characteristics of each dragon tribe. And, some dwell in the water, some dwell in trees, some are underground, and, so it's very fun for me anyway to get all this dragon knowledge of this whole different universe where they have 2 moons and things like that. So in these more recent books that I've been reading, including The Hive Queen, the action is taking place on another continent where there's a whole new, different tribes of dragons with whole new characteristics from the previous books. And so, and the main characters are usually adolescents that are trying to resolve a problem. And so that's what's happening in The Hive Queen. And so they can do a lot of stuff, as adolescents. They're actually pretty capable, although they do make mistakes sometimes. And but I love the way they interact with each other. And the good thing about these books is some of these tribes, they've been at war with each other, or they don't get along, and there's all kinds of problems. However, the groups of adolescents that show up in the books, they will be from different tribes, and yet they find a way to get along and resolve problems together and try to basically save the world, or at least their little world. And so it's very heartwarming sometimes with that, because they learn that some of these wars that their ancestors had were based on false information and things like that. So I loved it, just like I've loved the previous books in the series, and I'm going to go on and read book 13 as soon as I can. And but anyway, so Wings of Fire, love it. The Hive Queen, number 12. And so I'll be moving on in that series. And then the most recent book I finished is Lost Light by Michael Connelly, which is next in publication order after Chasing the Dime. And Lost Light is another book title, and this is a Harry Bosch novel, and it's another book title that, you know, has a certain meaning to it, and it's something just like Chasing the Dime. I didn't know what that meant or what that was about. Lost Light, you know, that can mean a lot of things, but in this book it was really interesting what it had to do with, and it has to do with Harry's past, and, you know, the Vietnam War. He served in the Vietnam War, and also it comes into play, Lost Light comes into play towards the end of the book. I'm sorry, my ears are itching because I went to the gym and swam a lot today. So anyway, so it's been, again, this was a Harry Bosch novel. And again, when it got to the end, I had no idea that the person, you know, that was at the bottom of the mystery, I had no idea that person was, you know, the culprit. So, or at least one of the culprits. And so I was thrilled with that. I love that when I just don't know, and then he just springs the surprise on me. And so it was a great story. It had, there were a couple things I didn't like, and there was a big reveal at the end that I really didn't like, that had nothing to do with the rest of the story. It was kind of a side thing. But my disappointment with the book was, this is the first time in Lost Light that Connolly wrote the Bosch novel in the first person. And this is Rosie. Let's see if she'll say hi. She doesn't like being held, but she likes being petted. But she's in season, so she may get loud. So anyway, I did not like Harry Bosch written in first person. And it took me really the whole book to figure out why. You know, it just didn't feel like Harry. It just didn't feel like the Harry I've come to know and love. And I think it's just, you know, it just gives a whole different feeling to his personality, I guess. And so I did not like that. And not much, you know, it was still great otherwise, but that change I didn't like. I like it when a book series, it's working well. I always wonder, why did you mess with it? Why not just leave it the way it was? Let it be, you know, it's working. It was certainly working for me as a reader. And I just, I guess I wanted there to be more hidden depths to Harry than there were in this first person narrative. And I wanted to get to know him better, but instead I felt like I was getting to know a new character. So that was kind of disappointing. But I did go on and start The Narrows, which is the next book in Michael Connolly's publication order. And so I barely started that one. It is, I don't know if it qualifies as a Harry. Harry is in it. I know from the description that Harry is in it, and a former character from a former book, The Poet, is in there. And so it's, I don't know. I don't know enough about it yet. And Harry hasn't shown up yet. Just the other character has. And so it'll be interesting to, if the two of them work together, that'll be interesting. And I think there was a short bit with Harry at the beginning, and I think his part of the story is going to be first person again. Not happy about that. The other characters' parts are being told in third person. So I was hoping the whole thing would be third person again. Anyway, so that's a recent start. And I also started Promise of Blood. The first book in the Powder Mage trilogy by Brian McClellan. And I am more than halfway. And isn't this a cool bookmark? Look at this. I got this at my library. I think that's pretty. Anyway, so it just says InessaBurnellArt.com. So I don't know if they just sent some to the library or what, but so I'm in, I believe I'm in chapter 20, and there's 40 chapters in this book. And so far I'm loving it. It's funny. I take it to the gym with me, and when I'm working out on the resistance machines, I have the book nearby, and so I'm supposed to do 3 sets of 15 reps with 30 to 45 seconds rest in between each set. So I pick up the book and I read a page, and I figure that's 30 to 45 seconds, and then I go on to do the next set. And I've gotten some comments when people see this book, because this is written so prominently, Promise of Blood. And I remember somebody saying something about, how, well, that sounds brutal or something. I can't remember what she said. I said, yes, deliciously so. So anyway, it is a great world that he's built. This is a fantasy book, and the subgenre is flintlock fantasy. I love this cover. This is one of the main characters. I'm not sure how you say his name. In my head, I say Tomas, but it's Tamas. And he's a man in his 60s, looking pretty tired there. He's got his rifle with the bayonet, and he has performed a coup of this land, Adro, and taken over. Anyway, the royalty and the nobility were very corrupt. The common people were suffering, and I guess it's kind of reminiscent of the French Revolution. And so the pluses of this book is that there's always something happening, and there's a lot of action, intrigue, just following these characters. There's he has hired an investigator who's going around looking into things. He has this whole. He's the field marshal. He's like the army, the head of the army. That's who he is, and that's how he carried off this coup. And so they have sorcery, magic, and these powder mages. The vehicle for their magic is gunpowder. So not only can they shoot things, because they have guns. They even have saw-handled guns, and even the descriptions of the guns are interesting. But they can make bullets. They can make bullets do things through magic. They can, like, they were talking about somebody, a powder mage, who could make bullets go 3 miles to hit the target. And they can go into a powder trance by snorting powder or putting it on their tongue or whatever, gunpowder. So whatever their gunpowder is, I guess it doesn't kill them because they're magic or something, they're mages. But anyway, they can go into this powder trance, and it heightens their senses, and so they can see far away. They can, anyway, they can withstand assault, other magical assaults and things like this. So there's all kinds of different types of magic, and sorcerers, and classes of magical powers, and so all these different characters that have these different characteristics, and so it's anyway, I'm just looking forward to finishing. I've got, I'm just a little over halfway, and then I'll move on to the next book in the trilogy, which is, what is it? The Crimson Campaign. The Crimson Campaign. But nothing beats this title. I love it. The Promise of Blood. Anyway, so I'm looking forward. And I discovered Brian McClellan has written, I guess, another series that takes place in the same world after this, and after this trilogy, I think, if I read about it correctly. So that's anyway, currently reading. And I started another book. I heard there was a Nora November going on, and I assumed that was Nora Roberts. And so I thought, well, maybe maybe I can squeeze in an audiobook and listen to a Nora Roberts book while I'm doing my handwork, needlework. And so I went looking, and I found on Libby, I think it's called the Dragon Heart or something, Dragon something trilogy. And the first book is The Awakening. And I think I got through 2-3 chapters, maybe. I DNF'd it. I loved the idea I loved the description of the book, and how it's got 2 different places, 2 different characters that I assume are eventually going to meet each other. It's like a fantasy. There's magical stuff in it, so I was all excited about it. But I got a little bit into it, and then I felt propagandized. I felt like there was an attempt at socially engineering me and propagandizing me, and I don't like that. And so when I get a sniff of propaganda, I generally let it go. So that was a DNF for me. And I'm kind of sad but I just couldn't, it just kept happening. I couldn't compartmentalize it and enjoy the rest of the story. So I just said, okay, I'm done. All right. And I've already talked about The Narrows, that the Michael Connelly book I started called The Narrows, which has an FBI character as well as Harry Bosch. So Harry Bosch hasn't really figured into it a lot yet. I'm still early into it. I've also started listening to Atomic Habits again. I love that book. I love the spaced repetition that helps me to remember all the things that are so helpful in that book. So, that book has helped me a lot to establish a gym habit, and going to the gym and swimming for an hour and a half and things like that. So it has benefited me. That book has benefited me a lot, my health and fitness. And so I'm just kind of early into it, and I don't listen to it every day. So I just kind of pick up a chapter here and there, and I always, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. I need to remember to apply that to this, certain thing going on in my life. So those are the books I have started, and I'm I am still listening to Evelina now and then. Again, it's an audiobook. So if I'm got, some time to sit and work on handwork, I will plug that into my ears and I will listen to a chapter or two. And so I'm still very much enjoying Evelina. There's a lot of things going on. I think I've talked about this before. It's an epistolary novel, but it doesn't feel like one. It's as Evelina and the people she writes to, or other people write to her guardian, and he writes to Evelina and other people. There's a lot of writing going on. I just totally forget that it's in letter form, because it shares all the conversations, and this is taking place. This is by Frances Burney, I think is the author's name. And she wrote this in the late 18th century. And so it's very much that time frame that the incidents are taking place. Some of it I found quite shocking, the way that gentlemen speak to a certain lady who, these English gentlemen, they're pretty rude to this French woman. And but she's not a real endearing character herself, but still, I always thought that time frame was good manners and ladies and gentlemen acting like ladies and gentlemen. So it's interesting. But Evelina is kind of an innocent in these situations that she's trying to find her way, and trying to understand the outside world more as she has, as she's coming into adulthood. And so it's a very, very interesting, entertaining book. All right, I already talked about that I want to start Crimson Campaign as soon as I finish Promise of Blood. So that's on my TBR soon. The book in publication order by Connolly that's after The Narrows is The Closers, and that's all I know about it is the title. So that one's going to be picked up as soon as I finish The Narrows. And the Poison Jungle is it's number 13 in the Wings of Fire series. And this is where we're going to go to the home of the leaf wings. And this is a leaf wing right here. So, and they live in the Poison Jungle. So this will be a whole new environment to explore. And I'm looking forward to it. And here's the description of leaf wings in the guide, the Dragon Guide. So so I really shouldn't have checked this out at the library since I'm still reading Promise of Blood, but I went and looked and it was on the shelf and I couldn't resist. So I thought, well, maybe I'll finish Promise of Blood real fast and have time to finish this one. So we'll see how that turns out. The Wager that I wanted to read, that's now, I had to turn that somebody had a hold on that one, so I had to turn it in before I even started reading it. So I don't know when I'll get to that one, but I still want to read the Wager. Now, I have some books that I've received or got. I went to the Little Free Library, dropped off some books I no longer want, and I got 3 books. And the first one is this one by Rosalie Maggio, How to Say It. And it sounds like it's, it says choice words, phrases, sentences, and paragraphs for every situation. So I thought, well, that could come in handy as a very good reference. Um, I guess it tells you how to do letters, and I don't know, but I can always use help with, how do you. I think there was even something in here. Let's see. Practical, easy to use book that tells you what to say and how to say it. Its flexible approach helps you fashion compelling letters in little more time than it takes to handwrite or type them. Well, I could use that. So a nice reference material there. So I'm glad I found that. And then, of course, every time I find Dean Koontz, I grab it. I don't think I have this one already. By the Light of the Moon. It did not sound familiar. If you've read it, let me know if it's worth reading. I haven't read a Dean Koontz book yet that I didn't like, so that's why I tend to pick them up. And it says, on the road on a hot Arizona night. Wow. Dylan O'Connor is overpowered by a stranger who injects him with an unknown substance. Well, that sounds pretty compelling right there. So anyway, By the Light of the Moon, Dean Koontz. So I don't know when I'll get to it, but I'm glad I have it for my Koontz shelf. And then I found this one, and I basically got it because I've heard of Discworld, and it says a novel of Discworld, but I've never read any, but the author's name sounded familiar, Terry Pratchett, and it's The Color of Magic. I looked it up, and this is actually the first book, so that worked out well for me, so that I can try the first book and see if I like it. So, it helped that the Washington Post says, ingenious, brilliant, and hilarious. I'm all for hilarious. So that helped me grab this one. So those were my little free library exchanges. Also, recently, about a week and a half, my sister came to Las Vegas for a conference, so I got to, go meet her there and stay with her at Caesar's Palace, that she now calls Rip-Off Palace.
Chili Willy.
Making the video. And so she got a lot of free books there at the conference. I guess they hand these things out like candy. And she ended up with a duplicate. So she gave me her duplicate, which is called Undoing Drugs by Maya Zolovitz, I think is how you would say that. And it says, how harm reduction is changing the future of drugs and addiction. So it's probably way out of my, I am not a healthcare professional, a mental health care professional. But I think I'll find it interesting anyway. Gabar Mate says, with characteristic flair, Maya Zolovitz presents a vibrant personal account of recovery, a broadly researched history of how a fringe idea transformed into a powerful therapeutic and social movement, and a heartfelt, irrefutable call for a sane and humane approach to the devastation of substance addiction. So I might dip into this because it's Nonfiction November right now. So I might dip into this just to get a taste and see if I'm going to like it or not. I don't really have a horse in this race, with substance addiction, but I'm always interested in how they, how these types of professions resolve problems and, the research in these kind of things. So if this one is well researched and everything, I'll probably, I like the science of, learning about, scientific research. So if this tells about a better way to help addicts, that's a good thing to learn. So I might dip into this a little bit if I have time, as long as I don't neglect Promise of Blood. So those are the books I've acquired recently. I thought I would also show just some fun things. I got to visit with more of my family when my sister was here. We all got together, and one of my grandsons asked me, what I wanted to learn how to draw, because he knows I want to learn, I want to draw better. And so I said, well, I want to learn how to draw a cat. I don't know if you remember, but on my last video, I think I showed my first attempt at drawing a cat. And so I figured he could probably give me all kinds of pointers. So as he was drawing my cat, Misty, she's sitting right here asleep, but I'll lift her up just to show her. She'll probably go right back to sleep. But this is Misty. She's my littlest, and very sleepy right now. And but he knows how I love Misty because she's such a cuddler. And as you saw, Rosie is not a cuddler, but Misty is. So as he was drawing this portrait of Misty, he's just telling me, how to do each thing. I thought it was just wonderful. I just loved it. So here's his portrait of Misty. And he did a much better job of drawing a cat than I did. He's 9 years old. So, and then he decided he wanted to draw me. And I thought that was wonderful. And so he drew Nana, and I loved it. And he put Misty in there again to be with Nana. So and I thought it was so funny. He says, I'm trying to get these lines right here. And he wasn't happy with how the glasses turned out, but I thought he did a great job. So there's Nana. And also in my library adventures, I have been getting, when I visit the library for my handcrafters group, I always, exchange, drop off books, pick up books. And I have, in the last month, I started picking up DVDs, and I started with the Last Kingdom TV series. And I have now finished all 5 seasons of The Last Kingdom. And Uhtred, Son of Uhtred, is, I also call it that. And so I found it interesting. As I went through, and of course this is books adjacent because the Last Kingdom TV series is adapted from the Saxon series by Bernard Cornwell. And I have not read those books yet, but I will now, and I'll tell you why. So, I was going to do it anyway, but now I have even more reasons to read them. So, The Last Kingdom, which is the first book in the Saxon series, is, I'm going to try to have to squeeze that in as well so I could start reading that series. But it was not on the bookshelf the last time I was at the library. I got lucky with The Poison Jungle being on the shelf. But I'll have to make a more, a larger effort to get a hold of the Last Kingdom book. But in the meantime, I noticed that, and I talked to my daughter about it because she watched all 5 seasons. And I told her, I really loved the first 2 seasons. They were great. It was great. But it seemed to start going downhill after that. And I got tired of seeing Uhtred's cry face. And there were other things that made the last 3 seasons not nearly as good as the first 2, I thought. Well, after I finished season 5, because the whole time I'm watching this series, I'm wanting to go look at the actual history that is behind this series, and I want to, that it's based on, and I wanted to learn more about the actual historical characters and what they actually did, and what history do we know, how much was invented for the series, that kind of thing. So I decided after finishing season 5, I just looked up the TV series on Wikipedia, because I figured that would have links to all the historical characters. And what I found out was very interesting, that the first season was done by BBC, and the second season was co-produced BBC with Netflix, mainly Netflix doing the international distribution or something like that. And then the final 3 seasons were solely by Netflix. And then when I went through the article and I read about each season, the first season was based on the first 2 novels in the Saxon series. The second season was based on the 3rd and 4th novels of the series, and stuck, so the first and second seasons basically stuck with the plot lines in the books. But starting with season 3 and then season 4 and season 5, each time in that Wikipedia article it says that Netflix made major plot changes all 3 seasons. And I thought, well, that explains everything. That explains why the first 2 seasons were so good and the last 3 not as good. And so I thought, I still can't look up all the history now, of Alfred the Great and all that, because I need to read the books to get the actual, what the series was based on those books, which I'm hoping Cornwell actually, stuck close to the actual history, at least what there is, what we have available as far as the history goes. So I thought, I better read those. And I think there's 13 novels in that series. So that's on my radar to start the Saxon series. So I'll be moving on to that as soon. I've got too many series going right now. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to keep forging ahead, and I don't want to not read those things. So then, if I finish those 13 novels, then I'll look up the actual history and probably read some actual history books about that time frame, because I'm finding it so interesting. All right, so that is, that's my story about that. Now after that, with the DVDs, I got a new crop of DVDs, and so I've been asking people to tell me, to give me like movie recommendations, because I decided to start watching movies after finishing the Last Kingdom TV series. And that way I thought I could watch one movie a night between trips to the library. So one of the ones, someone told me that the men in the family, their family all loved this one, which is Happy Gilmore. So I have watched this one. I did have laugh out loud moments, and so it was entertaining. It was good for an evening's entertainment. So I like that one. I am currently trying to finish both discs of this one that was also recommended to me, The English Patient. Now I know this is based on a novel, on a book, and I have not read the book, and I will not read the book because I actually found The English Patient movie kind of boring, and I love Ralph Fiennes. I love him. So he was great in the movie. I got too much glare going on here. But I thought the movie was too long for the content, it went on. It just dragged and got boring for me in several places. And I did like there was kind of a mystery in the beginning, and I like how that was revealed in the end. And I thought the actors were pretty good, most of them. Certainly Willem Dafoe, and who else? I can't remember who else was in there. Anyway, so it was like 2 hours and 41 minutes or something. It was very long. But what I have found interesting, because this has, the movie on this disc, and then there's the second disc, which has all the bonus material. I am finding this disc more interesting than the first disc. Because the bonus material is very extensive. It might even be more minutes. I don't know. I haven't been able to find out. But I'm still not done. So I've participated in the English Patient for 2 nights. Tonight will be the third night to try to finish up that second disc. There's a whole documentary on there on the making of the movie. There are extensive interviews with the crew, like the producer, the director, the film editor, the still photographer, the I can't remember everybody. I mean, it's just, so I'm learning a lot from this bonus material disc. I'm learning a lot about how movies are made, and the different jobs people have and what those jobs entail. And I think it was the producer, or maybe it was the director, talking about how they almost got Sean Connery to be in the movie. Sean Connery is my forever celebrity crush. And so I was, that I found that interesting, this part about how the scheduling didn't work out. And so Sean Connery could not be in the movie. He had prior commitments. So I was kind of boo-hooing. Maybe the movie, I would have enjoyed it better if had he been in it. But anyway, so far, it was a good movie. It just wasn't, like I said, it was just too slow for me. And so it was not intriguing enough for me to want to read the book. Even though they talked to the author, they talked, all these other people talked about the author and his writing and how good it was and how hard it was to adapt that very lyrical, kind of poetic prose into a movie. And I found that interesting too. So maybe if I don't have such driving needs as all these series that I'm immersed in, maybe I will pick it up and at least, try the first chapter or something of the book. But anyway, that's where I'm at on the English Patient. And so hopefully I'll finish that up tonight. And then the next one I picked, and I just picked these, the ones that, there were some of these that I just picked up off the shelf. I'm just kind of going in alphabetical order on the shelves. And so this is one of those. This was not recommended to me. I just got to the F's. And so I got The Fifth Wave, which I guess is some kind of dystopian thing. And I don't know if it's based on a book or not. I think it is based on a trilogy or something. Seems like I read that somewhere. But it's got, I can't remember this actor's name. You probably can't even, such a small photo. But he played Ray, oh gosh, some TV show. Anyway, I've always liked that actor. So that's basically what sold me and got me to pick it off the shelf, is when I saw his picture on the back. I like him. So that's that one, The Fifth Wave. I'll be finding out about that. And several people recommended this one to me, Rango. And so I put a hold on this one and got it, was able to pick it up. And so it's not one of the ones I picked up off the shelf in alphabetical order. but it takes place in Las Vegas, which is, my environment, nearby to me. And I'm very familiar with Las Vegas, and I guess it has some sophisticated humor and things like that. So I'm going to give that one a try. Then next on the alphabetical order off the shelf, I saw Cheetah. That's all I needed to pick up this one called Duma. And I love cats, all cats. So Duma, I think it says it's a fast-paced family adventure. So, and it talks about how cheetahs can go from 0 to 60 miles per hour, which I've always thought was so cool. So that one's coming up. Then this one here I got off the shelf in alphabetical order. Unfortunately, this is called Dragonheart, Battle for the Heartfire. Dragons will also generally get me to pick them up off the shelf, books or DVDs. And but I suspected, because of the way the title and the subtitle are, I suspected this might be a series. I looked it up. Sure enough, I think this is the fourth and last movie of the series, if I remember correctly. But anyway, it's not the first one. So I went on the library website and I put a hold on the other 3. And I will see if I can renew this one. If not, I'll at least start with the first one. And so that one is so I won't be watching this one until I pick up the others. And the same thing happened with this one that I picked up off the shelf. And this is Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. And I just got it because of the cover and looking like sorcery and whatnot and fantasy. And I get up to the desk to check out, and the library lady tells me that this is related to Harry Potter. And I said, oh, well, is this the first one? Because I think she told me it was the third. I have since looked it up, found out this is number 2 out of 3. And so again, I went to the library website, put a hold on number 1 and number 3, and I'll find out if I can renew this one and watch them, 1, 2, 3 in 3 nights. So as I understand it, it's this series of 3 movies is a prequel to the Harry Potter movies. So I don't know. I think the movies were made, and then books about these movies, or books, I think the movie came first and then books, if I read that correctly. But anyway, so this one's kind of on hold too until I can get the first one, because I like to watch them in order. But I'm looking forward to that. I liked the Harry Potter movies that I saw back when they first came out. So those are my DVD adventures. I don't know how long I'll keep up with this, because, before I started watching Last Kingdom from the library, I hadn't watched movies or TV in years. So it's like a whole new world to me when I watch these, and it's a nice end of the day passive activity that I can knit, crochet, cross stitch, sew too, so I can accompany my handwork with it and have my decompression at the end of the day before bedtime. So I'm currently enjoying it. I don't know how long it'll last. If anybody wants to leave recommendations for movies or TV series that I can look for at the library to try out, let me know. And especially if they're related to books, if they're adaptations of books or book series, I would love to try some of those. And so that's it. That's all I have for this episode. and it's about time to finish. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you're reading some wonderful books and enjoying the beautiful fall weather. At least here it's been fantastic. So I hope yours is as well. Thanks for watching again. Bye-bye.